Have you ever been so fed up with your neighbor you accidentally became a local art legend? Because I didn't wake up thinking I'd go viral for painting a mural around a Karen's illegally parked SUV. I just wanted to go to a meeting, a normal Tuesday, but instead, I found myself blocked in again. Fifth time that month, and this time she parked in my driveway to attend a meeting about blocking my driveway. That was the moment I snapped. Not with shouting, not with lawsuits, with color. And by the time I was done, that SUV wasn't just transportation, it was the unwilling centerpiece of a suburban masterpiece. This is the story of how I turned HOA tyranny into driveway art that made the whole neighborhood laugh and Karen absolutely lose it. Buckle up, because this isn't just paint, this is protest. I wasn't late until she made me late. You know that feeling when you dress sharp, coffee's hot, day's looking solid, and then life slaps you with a very shiny, very smug SUV parked right across your driveway? Yeah, that was my Tuesday. Karen's car, again. And I don't mean parked nearby, Karen. I mean 4 tires, fully horizontal, blocking my exit like a concrete wall, Karen. I stood there in my garage, holding a manila folder with all the documents I needed for a zoning board meeting, a meeting she herself tried to tank the week before. The irony, unbearable. The rage, immediate. I just stared at the chrome bumper reflecting my own disbelief, at the HOA for Life bumper sticker like it was a royal seal. And then I laughed, not because it was funny, but because if I didn't laugh, I'd probably throw a rake. This wasn't a casual coffee run she blocked. This was my livelihood on the line. And she knew it. You see, for the past month, Karen had been parking there accidentally 5 times. 5. I documented them all. And every time she came back with a smile and a Yorkie in her purse like that made it okay. But today she crossed a line. I tried to reverse through my neighbor Glenn's yard. Didn't work. Took out a sprinkler and a garden gnome. Glenn was nice about it, but I was soaked, ticked off, and 20 minutes late by the time I got back inside. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about parking. This was warfare with a clipboard. Now listen, I didn't go full rage in the street mode. No yelling, no horn-honking tantrum. That's not my style. Instead, I went inside, sat down, and started planning. Not revenge. Not yet. Something better. But before I tell you what that was, do me a favor. Like this video if you've ever had a neighbor who makes you question your faith in humanity. Drop a comment if your HOA has ever gone rogue. And hey, hit subscribe if you want to see what happens when petty meets paint. Because this was just the beginning. What Karen didn't know is that I have more creativity than she has bylaws. And a driveway? Well, that's just a canvas waiting to happen. Let's rewind and talk about how she weaponized a 30-year-old HOA charter like it was the Declaration of Suburban Independence. They say knowledge is power. In Karen's case, it was a dusty binder from 1991 and the belief that she was the supreme ruler of all things concrete. Let me explain. After I cooled down from driveway gate, I did what any sane person would do. I went to the emergency HOA meeting that Karen herself had oh so casually referenced earlier. Now, HOA meetings are usually about mulch regulations or how far your trash bin can lean without offending the community gods. But this one was different. Karen came prepared, like she was prosecuting a war crime. She had props. She had binders. She had tabs. Color-coded ones. I swear she used a label maker that morning. She stood in front of her garage, which she had transformed into a command center with folding chairs and passive-aggressive posters like "Respect begins with regulation" and "No lawn is above the law." And there, under the fluorescent garage light, she pulled out the holy grail of HOA documents, a community charter from 1991. It was laminated. She held it like it was the Constitution. "This," she said, "is the foundation of HOA Landia, and under Section 3, Sublaws D, emergency leadership activities permit temporary repurposing of common-use concrete." She looked directly at me when she said that. Common-use concrete, that was my driveway. She had highlighted that clause in pink and added a sticky note that just said, "Use this on him." I raised my hand. "Karen, do you really think a document from the pre-Google era gives you the right to block my car every Monday?" She blinked like I had just asked her to explain algebra. "Well," she sniffed, "community spirit is timeless." The rest of the board, made up of her cousin Larry, her bridge partner Dorothy, and a man who looked like he just wanted to be anywhere but here, all nodded nervously. It was like watching a dictatorship being politely applauded. She wrapped up her HOA TED Talk with, "I'm just trying to maintain order. If people start treating their driveways like personal property, what's next? Lawn flamingos?" I left that meeting knowing one thing. Karen didn't follow rules, she rewrote them. She didn't lead, she ruled. And in HOA land, she was queen, judge, and clipboard executioner. But here's the thing she didn't know. I'd started reading too. Not old HOA bylaws, but city ordinances. And what I found? Well, let's just say the paint was about to hit the pavement. Coming up, how I turned my driveway from a parking spot into a protest. Because if Karen was going to treat my property like public land, then it was time I treated her car like a modern art exhibit. Let me show you how a few cans of paint and a little sarcasm turned HOA drama into street legend. You ever been so mad you start Googling spray paint brands at midnight? Yeah, that was me. Karen's binder defense of community concrete privileges had pushed me to the edge of HOA madness. I was one more clipboard comment away from reenacting The Purge, Suburban Edition. But instead of flipping out, I flipped creative. If she wanted to treat my driveway like it was public space, I was going to treat her parking spot like a public mural. And I was going to paint. Like hell. The plan came together in my garage, surrounded by leftover rollers, a playlist of angry 2000s rock, and 3 cans of fluorescent chalk spray I had originally bought to mark garden beds. That night, they had a higher calling. Step 1. I built the scene. I strung up yellow caution tape across the edges of the driveway, like I was CSI for lost patients. Borrowed 2 cones from my neighbor Glenn, who by the way was way too excited to participate, and printed a sign that read, "Creative Zone, Street Art in Progress, Do Not Disturb the Muse." Step 2. I waited. And like clockwork, at 8:43 a.m. the next day, Karen's SUV pulled up and parked herself squarely across my driveway, just as she always did. Game on. With neighbors sipping coffee like it was a block party, I went to work. But here's the part that made it beautiful. I never touched her car, not once. Every brush stroke, every chalk mark, every glittery swirl was on my driveway. The SUV just happened to be the centerpiece of the canvas. I started with a sunburst under her tires. Then a trail of gold leaves curling around her bumper. Added a pink duck surfing on waves of HOA tears. And just for fun, I stenciled the words, "I park where I want. HOA Queen." Karen's SUV looked like it had crash-landed in an art school rebellion. And the crowd, they loved it. One neighbor even brought popcorn. Kids were clapping. People took selfies. Someone yelled, "Add a dragon!" So I did. A dragon made entirely out of tiny no parking signs breathing fire, labeled Section 3, Sublaws D. Was it childish? Maybe. Was it therapeutic? Absolutely. By sunset, the mural was complete. My driveway had become a protest, a gallery, and a comedy special rolled into one. But what I didn't expect was how far it would go. The next morning, Karen came face to face with the masterpiece she unknowingly starred in. And what happened next? Let's just say it involved cops, cameras, and the beginning of her fall from HOA royalty. Coming up, emotional terrorism with a paintbrush. Karen's meltdown goes public. Stay with me. You ever watch someone realize in real time that they're not in charge anymore? That was Karen the next morning. She strutted up to my driveway at exactly 7:58 a.m., as if punctuality would save her pride. Her usual accessories were present: oversized sunglasses, a non-fat oat milk latte, and a tiny dog that clearly hated its life. But this time, she also brought backup: a middle-aged man in a collared shirt, clearly regretting every decision that brought him here. I assumed he was her cousin, or maybe her lawyer, or both. With Karen, you never really know. She froze mid-step. There it was, my mural in full glory, sealed and shining under the morning sun, complete with shadows and highlights. Karen's sacred SUV was surrounded by swirls of satire and suburban rebellion. It wasn't just art anymore, it was community legend. She stared at it like it had personally insulted her mother. Then she snapped. She spun toward me, because of course I was on the porch sipping coffee like a man who knew he'd just won something, and shrieked the words that would echo for the rest of the week. "This is emotional terrorism with a paintbrush." I choked on my coffee. Her voice cracked as she explained to her +1, now visibly regretting life, that I had targeted her property for public humiliation and psychological warfare. She claimed my brushstrokes were acts of aggression, that glitter was a weapon, that the tiny duck I painted riding a unicycle was a metaphor for moral collapse. And when the police showed up, oh, it got better. 2 officers rolled up, clearly having drawn the short straw. One of them took one look at the mural, looked at Karen, looked at me, then said, "Ma'am, it's chalk on his driveway." Karen insisted I had created an unsafe emotional environment, the officer replied, deadpan. "So, should we arrest Banksy next?" Karen fumed, her voice rising with every syllable as her argument spiraled into phrases like symbolic defacement and paint-induced anxiety. Meanwhile, one of the officers started taking pictures. Not for evidence, but to show his wife. Then came the final blow. A local artist, who apparently saw the whole scene on Facebook, rolled up with a camera crew and said, "Mind if we feature this for our Suburba Speaks gallery next month?" I just smiled and waved toward the mural like I was Vanna White presenting HOA justice. "Karen?" She stormed off without another word. No SUV, no smug wave, just heels clicking across the sidewalk like a defeated parade. But Karen wasn't done, not by a long shot. Because when control freaks lose control, they don't surrender. They escalate. And what she tried next? Let's just say it involved sabotage, a sprinkler system, and the HOA group chat melting down faster than a gas station slushie in July. Coming up, sprinklers, sabotage, and the HOA meltdown heard round the block. I didn't plan on becoming a local celebrity. Honestly, all I wanted was my driveway back. But apparently, when you turn suburban warfare into street art and your arch-nemesis into a walking meme, people take notice. It started with a single post, a blurry photo of the mural snapped by Greg's teenage daughter, captioned, "When HOA drama becomes public art." 12 hours later, over 18,000 likes, 2 local news blogs, and 1 feature on a Facebook page called Suburban Nightmares That Slap. Then came the DMs. A downtown gallery curator named Val reached out, asking if I'd consider exhibiting a replica of the mural for an upcoming show called Lines We Cross, Art in Resistance. She called it Rebellion with Rhythm. I called it Me with Too Much Time and Sidewalk Chalk. But I said yes. Meanwhile, neighbors started getting bold. Someone down the street painted daisies on their sidewalk. Another family put out their garden gnome army, unlicensed, unregistered, and proudly wearing glitter hats. One guy added googly eyes to his mailbox and called it Glenn Jr. The neighborhood was coming alive. And all the while, Karen was spiraling. She doubled down on rules, fired off frantic HOA emails, and even tried to propose a decorative expression regulation during the next meeting. Yes, those were her actual words. The board? They smiled, nodded, and then tabled it into oblivion. But her real breaking point? The mural made the evening news. Yep, Channel 4, prime time. Anchor with perfect hair, voice dipped in concern. A homeowner's driveway has become the unexpected stage for a growing community movement. Is it protest? performance, or just paint? They ran a slow pan of the mural while Karen's SUV sat like a guilty monument in the background. They even quoted one of the neighborhood kids saying, "It's like art, but it also says, don't be a jerk." Honestly, couldn't have said it better myself. The gallery sent over a photographer the next day to take high-res shots. I printed a mini version of the mural on a canvas board and titled it, "Entitled to Park, Not to Rule." They hung it in the gallery window like a trophy. At the show's opening, someone asked me what inspired the piece. I answered honestly, petty vengeance, HOA abuse, and a whole lot of sidewalk chalk. They clapped. And for the first time since this madness started, I didn't feel like the guy being targeted. I felt like the guy who finally drew a line and the whole neighborhood picked up a brush. But just when it felt like things were settling, Karen reminded us all why dictators rarely go quietly. Because the next chapter? Oh, it wasn't just about rules and revenge anymore. It was sabotage, literal sabotage, with sprinklers, a screwdriver, and one very wet SUV. You ever watch someone dig their own hole so confidently they bring a ladder instead of a rope? That was Karen. Except her shovel, a bucket of soapy water. And her grand plan? Cleanse the neighborhood of unauthorized art. That's what she wrote on the flyer, in Comic Sans. It was a Saturday, sun high, birds chirping, driveway mural gleaming like suburban graffiti gold. And then, there she was. Bright orange vest, rubber gloves, 2 HOA volunteers, and a fold-out table stacked with powdered donuts. Oh, she was ready for war. What she wasn't ready for? The laminated public art permit I had posted right next to the mural, mounted on an actual easel with a mini spotlight and everything. It looked more legit than the HOA charter she kept waving like a royal decree. She marched toward the driveway, sponge in hand, posture righteous. And the moment she stepped past the curb, Glenn dialed the city non-emergency line like a seasoned sniper. Within minutes, a white truck pulled up. City code enforcement, clipboard in hand, sunglasses, calm. He walked straight up to Karen, pointed at the laminated permit and said, "Ma'am, any attempt to alter this driveway will be considered defacement of a permitted art installation." Karen blinked. Her glove froze mid-air like it forgot what it was holding. She tried to argue, of course she did. Said it was technically sidewalk-adjacent expression. The officer replied with a line so clean I nearly slow-clapped. "Ma'am, step away from the sidewalk before you slip into a lawsuit." She set the sponge down like it was radioactive. Her 2 assistants folded up the table without a word. Not a single donut was eaten. Tragedy. But that wasn't the climax. No, the real show started later that night. Around 2:00 a.m., the motion alert on my security camera pinged. I pulled it up, half asleep, and there she was again. Karen, dressed in black like a cartoon burglar, hunched near my sprinkler system valve, with a flashlight between her teeth. Her goal was obvious. Wash away the mural. Her mistake? Tampering with the wrong valve. She twisted something, ducked, and whoosh, a side-yard jet stream burst to life like Old Faithful. Except it didn't hit my driveway. It hit her SUV. Direct hit to the undercarriage. The camera caught her scrambling backward, shoes soaked, hoodie dripping, as she whispered, and I kid you not, "Stupid capitalist, hose demon." I rewound it 3 times. Cried, laughing. The next morning I filed a police report for tampering and turned in the footage. The officer recognized her instantly and just muttered, "Karen again?" Within 48 hours, the HOA board called an emergency vote to review her presidency. But before that, something beautiful happened. Someone, don't know who, taped a printed still of Karen's sprinkler-soaked sneak attack to the community bulletin board. Captioned, "Local tyrant attempts escape, fails, moistly." The neighborhood was no longer tiptoeing around her. They were pointing, chuckling, screenshotting. Karen had crossed the line, again. But this time she didn't just soak her car. She drenched what little credibility she had left. And what came next? It wasn't art. It wasn't water. It was a vote. I've been to weddings with less anticipation than that HOA meeting. The folding chairs came out at 4:00 p.m. sharp. Greg brought popcorn. Mrs. Levins brought binoculars, just in case Karen tried anything sneaky. And someone, I swear this is real, brought a Bluetooth speaker that looped Eye of the Tiger every time someone new showed up. It wasn't a meeting. It was an event. And at the center of it all, Karen, draped in a blazer 2 shades too bold for a Wednesday evening, lips pursed, sunglasses on, even though the sun had already called it a night. The HOA board sat stiffly behind a folding table like a jury that already knew the verdict. Donna, the board secretary, retired middle school teacher, zero tolerance for nonsense, stood and read the agenda aloud. Single item vote. Removal of HOA President Karen T. due to ongoing misconduct, harassment, and neighborhood disruption. She didn't even flinch saying it. That's when I knew. The gloves were off. Karen stood, chin high, voice trembling with well-rehearsed outrage. This is a personal vendetta orchestrated by a homeowner who painted ducks near my SUV. Yes, she really said that. Out loud. In public. Gasps. Snickers. Greg audibly whispered. Not the ducks again. She went on about tradition, authority, standards. Said I'd corrupted the spirit of the neighborhood. Said the mural encouraged graphy-mindedness. But what she didn't realize was that her audience had changed. These weren't the same neighbors who once nodded along to her flyers or mumbled sure at her rule changes. These were the same people she'd fined for non-compliant garden gnomes and warned for excessive porch chimes. And they were done. When Donna opened the floor for the vote, it was silent. Then one hand went up. Then 2. Then 5. Then the entire board. Unanimous. Karen stood there stunned, eyes darting, fingers twitching, like she was waiting for someone to object. No one did. Not even her bridge club girls. Donna cleared her throat once more. Effective immediately, Karen T. is removed as HOA president. This vote is final. Karen turned on her heel and marched out like she was storming off a reality show. The crowd didn't jeer. They just let her go. Because the real celebration was just beginning. People clapped, not loud, but real. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in months smiled at each other. Someone handed Donna a cookie. It felt like a reset. That night, Greg spray-painted a banner and draped it across my front fence. Let the mural stay, the madness go away. The neighborhood group chat blew up with memes, thank yous, and one legendary Photoshop of Karen's SUV flying through space, labeled Operation Entitled Orbit. Karen lost her title, but we gained something better. Our voice. Our say. Our piece. But the mural, the story, the impact? That was still unfolding. It started as a joke. A few swirls of paint. A vent for rage. A line in the driveway no one was supposed to cross. But by the time the HOA dust settled, it wasn't just art. It was a statement. It was ours. The mural that once framed Karen's SUV like a modern art hostage situation was now the neighborhood's unofficial monument to freedom, resilience, and yes, very strategic pettiness. 3 days after Karen's removal, a little girl named Harper from 3 houses down came by with sidewalk chalk. She didn't ask, just walked straight onto my driveway and started adding stars around the ducks I'd painted. When she was done, she smiled and said, "Now it's perfect." That's when it hit me. It wasn't my mural anymore. It was ours. The city extended the public art permit another 6 months after receiving an anonymous letter signed by over 50 neighbors. They called it a rare example of community cohesion through spontaneous expression. Yeah, I painted ducks under a Range Rover and somehow wound up part of a municipal case study. The gallery exhibit? The photo of the mural ended up on local news, a regional arts podcast, and, somehow, on the fridge in my dentist's office. But all that noise, it wasn't the real win. The real win was quiet. It was walking outside and seeing Greg building a free book exchange box, no permit required. It was Donna planting sunflowers by the curb, the same ones Karen once called optical clutter. It was Glenn replacing the sprinkler head I broke on day one and saying, "Don't worry about it, man, this street's better now." It was kids riding scooters down the sidewalk at 4:05 p.m. No one stopping them. No one threatening fines. And me? I kept the mural going a little longer than I should have. Even added a new section, a small corner tile sealed in resin near the edge of the driveway. On it, a pair of oversized sunglasses and a quote bubble that read, "Next time I'll just knock." Nobody ever asked me to remove it. Maybe because they knew it wasn't about revenge. It was about boundaries. About saying enough with a paintbrush instead of a lawsuit. Karen eventually sold the house. Packed up in silence. No grand exit. Just one final HOA email titled "A Farewell to Leadership" that no one opened. The new neighbors, lovely couple, brought cookies, asked if they could add a mushroom to the mural. I said, "Add 2." Now, every evening I sit out front on a fold-out chair, soda in hand, German Shepherd at my feet, watching the sun fall across the driveway like a warm spotlight. The mural is fading now, weathered by sun and time. But its message is still loud and clear. This is what happens when you try to turn a driveway into a dictatorship. And every time I hear a neighbor laugh or a kid shout as they hop between chalk ducks, I smile. Because we didn't just reclaim a driveway. We reclaimed our voice. We turned protest into art. Art into community. And community into something worth protecting, one brushstroke at a time.